across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and we have got a packed show as usual for you. Coming up at midnight, it is the phone-in. It is your full hour. Your voices, not mine. So this is the only hour now where you just get it all to you. No guests, no nothing. Just you and me. And I want to know what you think should happen with or to MPs who break the law. I mean, the MP for Runcorn and Helsby, I'd love to hear from you if you're from that particular area, Amesbury, this was violence. I don't know if you've seen the video, but he pummeled some constituent. So it doesn't matter what the constituent said. I mean, goodness me, people say rude enough things to me. I don't go and pummel them. I have been tempted, mind you, but I've never done it. So this is violence. Now, he doesn't have to stand down as your constituent's MP, and the reason for that is because you voted for him. So it is deemed in the system that Kev was talking about a moment ago that it should be your decision to get rid of him. But surely it should trigger a by-election. Now, if it was a parking ticket or some civil, I don't know, speeding thing, providing, I don't know, but violence. Do you want this man to be your MP? If your MP had been jailed for thumping a constituent after one too many bevies, would you want to go and talk to him and ask him, I don't know, if you've got a problem with housing or whatever? Of course not. He cannot continue to do his job. He can't. And to rub extra salt in the wounds, he's still getting paid. He's still getting part of his £91,000 salary. And that does rub salt into the wounds, doesn't it, when we're all struggling and there's going to be more tax bills coming and everything is costing so much more, that this person will be languishing at Her Majesty's pleasure, His Majesty's pleasure, getting his, meals and bed and board paid for and getting paid by us. Perhaps he should get a bill for his bed and board when he leaves. But I want to know what you think should happen to MPs who behave in this way, and if there is any way back for them. If he was like, oh God, I'm so sorry, oh that was really naughty of me, I won't do anything like that again, I wouldn't trust him. I wouldn't want to go and talk to him. Absolutely not. So if he is your MP, give me a call, because there is a way you can force a by-election. It's not that difficult, but you could do it if you wanted to. Because Labour don't want to force a by-election, so they're kind of not suspending him from the House of Commons, because he's just suspended from Labour. But if he gets suspended from the House of Commons, then fundamentally there has to be a by-election. They don't want a by-election because they believe that Reform will win it, and so do Reform. So I don't know whether they've got your best interests at heart or whether they've got their own best interests at heart. I'll leave you to make that decision. But listen, give me a call, 0344 499 1000, and you can text as well, put the word talk and then your message to 87222. Before that, we have the fabulous John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland, going through Tuesday's newspapers. And before that, Josh Rom is here with an exclusive interview. If you like Baywatch, you're going to want to hang around for that. And Alex Three Lions Irons will be here to discuss the sport from the weekend. But first, as you know, because it's been talked about all day, as it should be, Ukraine has managed to hold off the bear for 3 years. 3 years. Russia thought it was just going to walk in. In fact, worse than that, they thought there'd be parades, flowers and speeches meeting them. They didn't prepare for Ukraine. They didn't prepare for the spirit, the nerve and the bravery of the Ukrainian, not just the Ukrainian forces, but the Ukrainian people. They didn't reckon on that. So 3 years later, Russia has taken land, we know that, to Ukraine. It is a huge amount of land, but actually, for Russia, this big scary monster, it's a sliver of what they wanted. They wanted the whole country, of course, but they didn't take it. But now could be the most dangerous part of the war for Ukraine, the peace talks, from which, of course, they have been excluded. Macron goes to see Donald Trump today, all pally, touching his knee. It's lovely. What did he get? And what will Starmer get? And more importantly, what will Ukraine get from the peace? Well, to answer some of those questions is Angus Walker, former ITN political correspondent. Angus, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. Really, really important questions there. 3 years on, where are we? Is this potentially the most dangerous part for Ukraine?
Well, it is, Petrie. Good evening. Really good to talk to you again. I think that this is the moment where Ukraine has to decide if it is going to concede the land that Russia has taken in the last 3 years, because the sense from the press conference that I watched earlier this evening with President Trump and President Macron of France was really interesting to read between the lines of what they were saying. And Trump was asked at one point whether Ukraine should concede the land that has been taken by Russia, and all he could say was, "We'll see." So there's a lot of open-ended answers there in terms of that particular question. It didn't bode well for Ukraine, if you ask me, when I heard that particular answer.
I mean, it also appears to me, Angus, that we know Russia. Okay, we know Russia of old, and Lavrov certainly is asking for more land than they've taken. But this is Russia's playbook, right? They see a crack, and they'll try and kick it through.
Well, it is interesting, isn't it? Because you've got perhaps the toughest negotiators ever seen in modern times around a table at the moment, in terms of President Putin and President Donald Trump. And you've got the Europeans and the British Prime Minister also trying to get in on the scene. But really, this is between Putin and Trump. And that again came through clearly, I thought, watching that press conference this evening. The Europeans are essentially begging Trump not to do a deal that's going to be too cruel to Ukraine. And the only way they can do that is to say to President Trump, look, whatever deal you do with Putin, you need to ask yourself, how much can you trust Vladimir Putin? Or do you want to be the guy who does a deal with Putin and initially walk away saying, I'm the guy, I've carried out what I said I would do, I've ended this war in Ukraine, but then a couple of years down the road, Putin reneges on that deal and you end up looking like, you know, that he made you into a bit of a fool, that he tricked you into doing a deal, and you appeased Putin, and now he's evading Estonia or Latvia or whatever it is. So I think that's their only way they can try to sand down the spikiness that Trump is showing at the moment.
It did occur to me last week, Angus, that certainly when Donald Trump had a little tantrum and started because Zelensky called him out on the propaganda that he was spouting, that calling him a dictator, saying that he's stolen money fundamentally from the US, that he's got yachts and, you know, squirreled away all this cash. At that point, should America not have recused itself from any peace talks? How can we trust peace talks when it is absolutely clear that Donald Trump favours the aggressor and not the victim? I mean, is it time for people to say in the world, look, let Saudi do this deal, let anybody else do this deal, but it can't be America. They've laid their cards on the table.
Yeah, really interesting you say that, because on a couple of points, Trump was really seemed very enthusiastic about making the point this evening during the press conference and his remarks that he wants to be a peacemaker. I bring peace, I don't bring war, he said. He also praised the Saudis on more than one occasion. So to answer both of those questions, Petrie, it seems that Trump might be listening, and he's trying to perhaps play both sides of the table at the same time. There is Trump playbook. We know it. We know him better than we've ever known him before. This is his second term. He likes to go in all guns blazing, disrupt everything, kick the table over, and then stand back while people put all the furniture back together and put all the cards back on the table in perhaps a different order. But he is doing this because that is the way he operates. And he comes across as an impatient leader. He wants to see results quickly. He said he would end this war quickly. This evening, he talked about the possibility, certainly hinting, that an initial ceasefire might be very, very, not very far away at all, very close, and could be done in a matter of weeks. I think it would take longer for a lasting peace deal to be done. President Macron was there also saying that in terms of what the Europeans would do, they would be prepared to step in and shoulder some of the burden, because throughout this whole process, the last couple of weeks or so on Ukraine, Trump has been berating Europe for not pulling its own weight, saying America's put in about $350 billion. We're not seeing anything back. Europe's put in about a third of that, much of it in loans. You're going to get the money back maybe one day, hopefully one day. America's not getting a good deal here. We're sick of it. We want the minerals from Ukraine. We're not putting any more money in. We want this over. And Europe, it's time you actually showed up and started to put some money where your mouth is. There was real insistence from Trump, and there was a sense from Macron that the Europeans realize they're going to have to do that, but they're going to have to tie it with what they want, which is long-term security. So what they'll say is, yeah, we'll shoulder our burden as Europe, but we want long-term security, i.e., Donald, don't do a deal with Putin. If it's not going to last a long time, make sure there's assurances there, and then we'll do exactly what you say.
Didn't Macron correct him, though, on the level of money that came from Europe as opposed to the US? Because actually, collectively, the European countries have given more money or more support, financial support to Ukraine than America.
Yeah, I think there's it's sort of numbers on the side of a bus time, really, isn't it? When you start throwing numbers around, again, it's trying to get a reaction. But yeah, I mean, it depends what you define it. Do you define it as purely as ammunition, weapons, or the more broader definition of aid? Then, of course, it gets much bigger on the European side.
Peace at any cost, right? In other words, appeasement. History has taught us that doesn't work. We appeased Putin over Crimea. A few short years later, Ukraine, as a sovereign state, was attacked. Why is there faith that Putin will obey any appeasement rules this time?
I don't get the sense from watching what people are saying that there is any faith as such in what Putin is saying. But there's certainly from this White House and from President Trump now back in the Oval Office that he just wants to do something that's practical. He certainly wants to end this war, and he's not really fussed about doing a deal with Putin. Yeah, he's going to do it with the massive help from the Saudis, and it'll be constructed in such a way so that he can come away. He wants to come away clearly as being seen as the peacemaker, and that involves a deal with Putin. He's just cutting to the chase and saying, well, if this war is to end, it's going to require a deal with Putin, and that's that. I think, given the players around the table, what you're looking at is an outcome that will require a sort of Good Friday, Belfast Agreement, that constructive ambiguity that they called it at the time. It's finding that way where everyone can walk away from a situation like this with some sense of honor, so that they can turn around, face their own people and say, yeah, we got a good deal here. We might not have got everything we wanted, but we've got enough. And certainly you get the sense that Putin would like a way out, because as you said at the very beginning of our conversation, Petrie, it didn't go Putin's way. He did not get what he wanted, and he's had to endure 3 years of wasteful, tragic, brutal, agonizing war that sapped his economy, his defenses, and so on. So I think behind the scenes, Putin's probably the one who really wants a deal as well.
Yeah, I mean, he must be embarrassed, right? I mean, he must be, the great, mighty Russia. Just before I let you go, Angus, what do you think the meeting, I mean, I pay anything to be a fly on the wall, the meeting between Starmer and Trump. We know it's been a bit fractious, the relationship there. I mean, Elon Musk is apparently trying to oust Starmer as we speak. So how is that going to go between these two men?
Well, Starmer will want to be able to look tough and look like a world leader and look like he's got a unique position from which to try to influence the American president. I think behind the scenes at the Foreign Office and Number 10, they probably are aware that it would be naive to think that they could actually tell President Trump what to do or what he has to do. He's far too unpredictable anyway. To, even if you get some sort of agreement with President Trump on a Monday, it might be all completely different on a Friday. So I think there's a lack of naivety. As I said earlier, people do know him better, but Starmer will want to walk away and be able to give the narrative that because Britain has a unique position, a unique mid-Atlantic position, that they are able to take some of what the Europeans are saying and some of what the Americans are saying and some of what Ukraine is saying and try to mold it into a position of helping grease the wheels, as it were, and being a key player. And that outcome of being seen as a key player is crucial for Starmer if he's going to present himself as a world leader who has any sort of credibility in this process and not just being overruled, overwhelmed, overtaken by the Americans themselves, who seem keen on just doing a deal face to face with Putin and largely keeping the Europeans, Ukrainians, and indeed the British on the sidelines.
How can he do that, though, where there seems to be a lot of kowtowing to Donald Trump at the moment regarding things such as tariffs, and it's not beyond Donald Trump to conflate the two issues, to pull them together and say, well, I know that this should be separate to that, but you know what Trump's like, he'll just bundle it all into the same washing machine. Can Starmer be tough, as he needs to be, over Ukraine, whilst at the same time defending Britain from, some tariffs that we wouldn't do very well from?
Yeah, I think Starmer would have to try to appeal to Trump on a very transactional level, because that's how Trump operates. I think Starmer would be wise to try to come across as a trusted advisor, that Britain can be a trusted advisor, not just on Ukraine, but in other ways as well. We're outside the European Union. We have a different perspective from the EU states. That could all be useful to Trump. You've got to basically offer Trump things that he thinks are going to be useful. You can offer him what you think is key advice. For example, if you do a deal, be very careful. You're not going to be ripped off down the road. You might think you're saving the United States money, because it's all got to be based on, transactional financial reasons for doing something. Bear in mind, Trump is talking about $350 billion going to Ukraine now. He wants minerals and rare earths in return. He wants something back. So bearing that in mind, Starmer might go down that road and help the Europeans and the Americans by trying to carve out more caution into the deal and say, look, you might get your money back from Ukraine. That's going to happen. We're happy to help you with that. But when you do a deal with Putin, make sure you're not going to be ripped off by Putin 2 years down the road. And then he just gets, wind in his sails, as you say, and he's going to invade somewhere else. And it will be America that will end up financing the defense of Europe again. and you will lose all your money. So, it's about the finances of a deal as well as the diplomacy of a deal.
And just quick, I've just had another thought as well. I wanted to ask you, Germany, right? So a new look to Germany at the moment. The Conservatives have won. The AfD have got just over 20% of the vote. But it seems interesting now that Germany is talking about a Europe without America. There's a lot of talk now about, look, okay, America, pretty much we can't rely on them anymore. We can't trust them anymore. We need to build, and I suspect they mean financially as well, we need to build a Europe that is strong enough to not have anything to do with America. Is America in danger of not only wanting to be inward looking, but being isolated?
Well, yeah, America is isolated if you in defense terms, because they've got two whopping great oceans between them and anyone else of any, weight, as it were, in terms of threat. There is no threat. The geographical threat to countries in Europe is significantly different, and that affects the mindset of Americans. Like, people are talking about NATO being dead because Trump doesn't like NATO. We know that from his first term. What if America decided they didn't want to be members of NATO anymore? What would Europe do? Most European countries, Germany included, don't have the economies at the moment to be able to suddenly pull out another 20, 30 billion pounds, euros, to be able to boost defense spending to the sort of levels that would be able to withstand or compensate for American withdrawal from NATO, for example. It'd be really, really massive blow to European defense if America walked away from NATO, or America started to scale down its defense assets on European territories. Big extraordinary moment in world history, and of course a massive signal to China and Russia that you've got nothing more to be afraid of. And Putin will have proved his point that the West is weak, democracy is in decline. His brand of politics, China's brand of politics, are the dominant ones, and they're just going to watch from the sidelines. And as Europe continues to get weaker and weaker, so we are a really crucial crossroads when it comes to that relationship between the US and Europe on defense, and Ukraine is that real microscope through which we can look at that.
Yeah, worrying times. Angus, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. Angus Walker, their former ITN political correspondent. A quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, and a good evening to you. It's Monday already. Where did the weekend go? I don't know. I want to talk to you at midnight about this MP, this thug, actually, who is still an MP, Mike Amesbury, literally just beating up a constituent. Why not? That's the way it goes. The constituent was apparently annoying. Amesbury had been having a few drinks. Still absolutely no excuses. You don't go and thump the people you don't thump anybody, frankly, but you particularly don't the people who employ you, right? If I went up to my boss and punched him in the face, I'm pretty sure I'd lose my salary very, very quickly. But, of course, Amesbury is an MP. So he continues to get paid. Isn't that nice? 91 grand, which, by the way, is going up. They're getting another 5% pay rise, which you'll be delighted to hear because they're so worth it. They're getting another pay rise, having had, what was it, 7% last year? I think, I can't remember the exact numbers, but something like that. So, yeah. So he still gets paid his £91,000 while he's in jail. He's got a 10-week sentence. Clearly, not all of that will be spent in jail. Don't be stupid. I mean, pummeling somebody on the street, 10 weeks anyway, not good enough, particularly for an MP, right? Why wasn't that taken into consideration? You're an MP, mate. You have a higher standing in society. You're paid by the public purse. You don't go and thump people. End of story. So as an MP, you get a longer sentence. Sorry, I think that's only right. Because people have different positions in life, right? He was an MP, has responsibility to his constituents, not to pummel them on a pavement in his local town. I mean, you'd think, right? But anyway, he continues to get paid. I want to know what you think should happen to MPs who behave in this manner. The fact that he's going to have a nice holiday, basically. He's going to get at least 5 weeks having his meals served to him, probably playing a bit of PlayStation, learning a bit of street talk. I don't know, maybe getting a tattoo from his new boyfriend in jail. I don't know. I mean, what do you do? What do you do in jail? I don't know. Sorry, I just hear myself laugh there. He will be getting his meals and getting paid. Like a paid holiday of sorts. I mean, it probably won't be the nicest holiday. The bed might not be a comfy one, but, you know, hey. But he's still getting paid to do nothing. He won't be answering your constituency emails. He won't be having meetings about the council house problem in your area or the roads or anything like that. And he can't, they say that they can't take the money from him. Oh, surely, come on. That's ridiculous. Who else gets paid while they're in prison? Let me know, apart from prison guards, which, you know. But who else gets paid? Tell me if you know of anybody else who gets paid while they are in jail. I suspect it's nobody. But what do you think should happen to him and those like him who continually just take the mick out of the taxpayer? 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here until 1 o'clock. And it's time now to talk sport. And very handily, we've got Alex Three Lions Irons here, who's from Talk Sport, who's a presenter and producer. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. You're talking to me like you're talking to your dog again, I think.
I am. Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah,
How are you?
It's obviously because you're cute, like my dog, right? I mean,
thank you.
just take that. Liverpool.
Oh, gonna have to.
Yeah, Liverpool. Do we just give them the title now? Let's not play any more football and just let them have it?
It feels like that, doesn't it? Liverpool are now 11 points clear of second place Arsenal in the Premier League. It was rain-soaked over the weekend. Jubilant supporters called it with 90 seconds remaining of a statement win over Man City over the weekend, and there was the sound and fans singing, "We're going to win the league," which echoed around a sea of empty sky blue seats at the Etihad, with Liverpool now 11 points clear at the top of the Premier League table. It feels inevitable now, with Jurgen Klopp leaving and Arne Slot coming in at the beginning of the season. A lot of people, me included, thought it was going to be maybe another runaway title for City. Liverpool maybe are in a bit of a rebuild at the moment, and that hasn't happened. If anything, City have fallen away and need a rebuild, and Liverpool are going to run away with the Premier League title by possibly more than 11 points. Arsenal could have caught up to them. They could have made a bit more of an effort to try and make it a title race, but they lost at the weekend. They lost at home to West Ham, which was a shock result, really. Not a lot of people saw that one coming, but Arsenal needing a win, which normally means that Arsenal end up losing. So it feels like this season is going to run its course, and it will be Liverpool lifting the title coming into the season.
Is there any way that Arsenal could catch up with them, or what would have to happen for that to happen?
I think Arsenal would have to have a perfect season at this point on, and Liverpool would have to fall off a cliff in regards to their form. But Arsenal have been plagued with injuries. Gabriel Jesus injured, Bukayo Saka injured. They've got a lot of injuries across not just in going forward, but in defence as well. And there was a lot of, especially in the office at TalkSport, we have a lot of Arsenal fans who are ruining that Mikel Arteta didn't make any signings over the January transfer window, and then they got hit with more injuries. They've got no recognised striker at the moment. They've got Moreno playing up front, who's a defensive midfielder. They've got him playing up front at the moment, and it worked last week when he scored 2 goals, but it didn't work against West Ham on the weekend. And it feels like Arsenal are just a little bit stuck. And if they're lucky, they will be lucky to hold on to second place. But at the moment, with the way the Premier League is shaping up, no one really wants to claim the top 4. Forest have lost a couple of games in a row now, and the fact that they were third to begin with is a bit of a miracle. Man City have been poor all season. Win games, they'll win one game and lose another one. They beat they beat Newcastle United last weekend and then lost this weekend. Chelsea are in no real run of form either. So it feels like nobody wants to win a game at the moment, let alone finish in the top 4.
I mean, so Liverpool aren't expecting any fines or anything like that could nip away at those points. There's nothing to stop them, basically. Nothing
at the moment that we're aware of. There is, of course, the 115 alleged breaches of financial fair play ruling that Man City have got looming over them at the moment. But Liverpool, as far as we are aware, are rather clean. So there's no threat of them losing any points or getting deducted of any points for this season. If anything was to come through, I reckon it would we won't find out about it for a good couple of years. But they've been pretty shrewd in the transfer window this season and even last. So I think they should be in the clear in regards to them keeping this title.
Wow. Yeah. Looks like, there's no point putting a bet on them now, is there? Because that would be even.
Well, they'll win, yeah. You'll get your money back, but you won't get any more.
You won't get any more than that. No point. Now, is Sir Jim Ratcliffe the Elon Musk of the Premier League, just going in there and cutting jobs?
Well, it feels like that because Manchester United are going to make 200 jobs redundant to return the club to profitability. Where have we heard that before recently? They've also made 250 members of staff redundant last year.
Wow.
That was in the first wave of cost-cutting measures by co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So that's 450 jobs going already at Manchester United within the first 6 months.
How many do they employ, for goodness sake? They can get rid of 450. That's a lot.
As of the 30th of June last year, Manchester United had 1,140 employees. So 450 redundancies would be a 39% decrease of the club's workforce.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely massive. And it's not just the redundancies as well. People that have kept their jobs, they're not being fed by the club. We heard that stewards had their match day kind of meal or lunchbox, or the kind of meals that they give out to the stewards, who of course are a massive part of the match day experience. That went, so people have had to bring in their own lunches. Essentially, the club aren't feeding them anymore, and anyone who's not a first-team player or a player at the club being fed sandwiches and soup, which is something that came out earlier this week or over the weekend. So it's not looking good for Manchester United at the moment, on and off the pitch. It feels like the redundancies coming in. It feels like a bit of a, to me, it feels like a scapegoat.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, this
all these
just
people who are
really
working there.
annoys me when this happens with any company. And the first thing they do is sack the cleaners or the tea lady, or take away nothing, little tiny things like a free sandwich. What are the players on? This is
the players
what
are on
annoys
hundreds
me.
of thousands. Yeah,
exactly.
It's
Why
frustrating.
take away that is just cut the salaries to your expensive people, right?
Yeah, it's the thing that annoys me about this stuff is that football clubs are more than a business, and they are a business. We can't deny that. But they're a lot more than that to a lot of people, not just in the Manchester area.
Yeah, and
but
they make
across the
money
world
out
for
of that
Manchester
image,
United.
right? They make money out of being a family and being, all of that, and then they treat people like that. It's despicable.
They do, but they also have they're a part of that community. They offer jobs to people in that community, and they are treating the people that are in their community who are also Manchester United fans. People go in and work for the club because working for Manchester United is a dream for them, and they are treating them like they don't deserve to, wipe the dirt off their shoes. I think it's disgusting the way that, people come in and who've only just been there and treat people that have been at that club for 10, 20, 30 years, and not only have they made their living at their club, but that is their heart and soul, and it's the heart and soul of all football clubs. People that come in and work behind the scenes in a football club, even if it's the tea lady, even if it's just doing food for the players, cleaning the boots, running the bar or whatever. These people are the heart and soul of every single football club in the country, and you take them out, that club loses that soul. And it feels like Manchester United are slowly, well, not even slowly, they're having their soul ripped out by them by Sir Jim
It just
Ratcliffe.
becomes a corporation then.
Yeah, and it feels like
how
it's
do you get
becoming like that now.
loyalty? How do you get that? And Manchester United, of all the clubs, makes so much money from its fans in terms of even just buying a couple of shares in the club, right? There's a lot of owners of Manchester United on the stock market who are buying shares into that, and then they support with the shirts and the jackets and all of that stuff, but that's about family and about loyalty. You lose that and you become just any other company, then they may rue the day that people will just start saying, well, if you're a company, I'll treat you like a company then.
Yeah, but there are people that will love the club for their past successes, maybe not necessarily for who they are now, and
Not
also
for
because
long.
it's their local club. Not for long, but there will be people that do. I met a guy earlier this year when Fulham played Manchester United at Fulham, and he became quite famous on social media as a man who cycled from Mongolia to Manchester to go and watch Manchester United play football. That is how much of a reach, not just the Premier League, but Manchester United has in general. And it feels like not only are those fans who live further afield, who would love to even experience a game at Manchester United, let alone be in the area, it feels like these cost-cutting measures let those people down as much as it does the people who are in the community already.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have been a part of that community for generations.
It absolutely does. I mean, you often see people in very dire situations across the world watching a Man United game. They love them. Luis Rubiales found guilty of sexual assault for kissing Jenny Hermoso, even though he said she gave him permission. Yeah,
but that's... he might say that, but of course he has now been found guilty. So anything that he says is kind of...
It's rubbish.
Well, it's
off
rubbish.
The table. Yeah.
So he was found guilty of sexual assault for kissing Jenny Hermoso without her consent and ordered to pay a fine of €10,800, or in British terms, that's £8,942. Spain's High Court ruled that was a ruling that came out late last week. He was acquitted of coercion for allegedly trying to pressure Hermoso into saying publicly that the kiss was consensual. Of course, this happened during what is essentially the biggest moment of Jenny Hermoso's career, when Spain won the World Cup in 2023 against England down in Sydney, Australia. Rubiales grabbed Hermoso by the head and kissed her on the lips. The incident triggered protests and calls for the resignation of Rubiales, who has said that he will appeal against the verdict. The ruling also has banned Rubiales from going in with within 200 meters of Hermoso and communicating with her for 1 year, the court said in a statement. So I think a lot of people might say that doesn't go far enough, but financially maybe not, but in regards to everything else, I think it does.
Well, I hope he's learnt a lesson, keep his hands in his mouth to himself.
Yes, of course.
Alex, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. You're a good boy. Well done.
Very much. I'll stop wagging my tail.
Alex, Three Lion Science, talkSPORT presenter and producer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There's a lot of shouting going on in here. I don't know what's happening. Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. It's unruly. When I'm in the studio on my own, calm. Yes, it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And with me in the studio causing that noise
that's me.
was Josh Rom, entertainment journalist.
Guilty as charged.
Honestly, shouting.
Basically, I realised I left my mug just in the production gallery, so I asked our fabulous producer, because I'm all strapped in, because when I come in, I have to plug myself in with all my microphones, my in-ears, and I was all strapped in, and I asked our fabulous producer, Gabriella.
You didn't ask, you shouted. But anyway.
No, I was like, no, it's right there. And she's like, no, it's not. And I said, no, it's like I was shouting, it's right there. Anyway, I've got my drink of water. I'm happy, and Gabriella's still fabulous. Thank you, team.
There you go. Right, you have a special exclusive for us this evening, so let's crack straight into it, because you've got a lot.
Yes, absolutely. Well, just very quickly, before I strap into the proper full-on exclusives with Pamela Anderson, I want to talk a little bit about a brand new show that's on Disney+. It's called 1,000 Blows. It stars Stephen Graham. It also stars the Crown star Erin Doherty as well. And I kind of had a behind-the-scenes sneak peek at the set, which it was giving Victorian London. I felt like I was in Oliver Twist all throughout the set. I think we do have a slight overlay as well, so I can show you guys, because whilst I was there, I snuck in. I did a little bit of filming. But basically, the show is about the violent melting pot of the East End of London in the Victorian era. It focuses on an all-female crime syndicate called the 40 Elephants, and it also shows the world of illegal bare-knuckle boxing. So I had a look at these fabulous costumes that you can see on screen, lots of props there, very intimate, huge production. I also got to have a look at some of the boxing, the stunts performers, see them kind of how they put these fights together. The show was written by Stephen Knight, creator, of course, of Peaky Blinders, and also he wrote the brand new Pablo Larraín film Maria, which starred Angelina Jolie. Of course, we featured that on the programme. So think Oliver Twist meets a kind of feminist Peaky Blinders. It's absolutely, it's a brilliant show. So I just wanted to do a quick mention.
Good, lovely set. Where was that?
So that was, it was in a brewery near Chiswick. So
Fuller's Brewery.
Yes, Fuller's Brewery.
How do I know the name of the breweries?
Well, you knew it. You knew it. So that thing, and they transformed. You could see this whole big world. It was just
the church there was where my son was christened.
And I passed it on the way to the studio, of course, on the way to the sets, of course. So yeah, really good, really good show.
So I know that brewery. And Pamela Anderson now.
Yes, of course. So Pamela Anderson stars in a brand new film called The Last Showgirl, sorry. So she stars as a Vegas showgirl called Shelley, who's been in this huge Think Las Vegas review show, costumes, feather boas, burlesque, for about 30 years. And the show is the last of its kind in Vegas. But it's closing down. And so this character is in a real state of flux because she's given her all to the show for 30 years and she's done pretty much nothing else in her career as well. So it's all about that world. It's all about the people around her, the real dark side of Vegas. Pamela Anderson as well has received a lot of acclaim. Critics are loving this film. She received a Screen Actors Guild Award. She was nominated in the drama category at the Golden Globes as well. She's going through
She's having a real renaissance.
Renaissance.
Yeah, good for her.
A real reinvention as well. You'll see if you're watching on YouTube, she goes makeup free in her interview. But I ask her, my opening question to her was, how did this film, because her character Shelley goes, feeling seen, feeling beautiful, that's powerful. So I ask her, how did this film make her feel seen in a way in which she never has done before?
That's exactly it. I mean, the movie was an opportunity for me to, to express myself in ways I haven't been able to in the past. And I feel like every movie heals parts of yourself. And I didn't realize, I kind of thought, I could never have played Shelley the way I did if I didn't have the life experience that I had, starting from a very young girl. So I thought it was all worth it that I could actually put all of that into this film and to really draw from that experience. And I can imagine that Shelley had a similar life as I did, and finding her way and finding some way to be seen and to feel beautiful and to express her talent. And she probably took dance lessons and all these things in her life and put all of her life into this, and then to feel it being ripped away was such an interesting crossroads to explore, because life is about reinvention and chapters, and she's hitting this crossroads. And I think that's what's so moving about this film, and that, we shot this movie in 18 days, so it was, somewhere between a short film and a full-length feature film. And if we had more time, we could have explored more deeply, but I kind of like that it's left ambiguous in some ways, where you can bring your own life experience to it. I think the audience is a character. People feel different things with it and where she's gonna go, and so I kind of feel like it's poetic in a way. It's not spelled out for you, but you feel it. And I think that is when you know you've done your job, when you see tears in the audience or laughter or engagement, and it sits with you. People tell me that they think about this film like weeks after they've seen it, and I love that. Because for me, when I watch a film and I'm thinking about it later, that's a sign of something that's touched my heart.
She's so pretty, isn't she? I just was saying to you in the break there that it's amazing. The second she took her makeup off, they took her seriously.
Yeah. And it really is that. And actually, because when you strip away the makeup and you get behind this person, you could probably tell in that interview she's very, very humble, very softly spoken. She's just such a sweet woman, and I find her, looking at her in this film, in this performance, when you strip away all the makeup, she's insanely likeable, which is something that I found.
I'm insanely ugly. I strip away my makeup. So you'll never be seeing that.
I'm not hearing any of that. I've seen you, Missy, without makeup. Yeah. I can confirm that you're talking absolute rubbish there. The production gallery was probably scared that I was about to swear there because I feel so passionately about this. I'm not having that. You're fabulous. But I want to kind of go back onto when we're talking about Pamela Anderson in that way, and again stripping back the makeup, we have seen her beforehand as the ultimate sex symbol all throughout the decades, and this film, The Last Showgirl, I think it's fair to say that we definitely see a new side to the actress here, and it shows that she can act to this high level alongside the likes of Kate Winslet and Angelina Jolie, and we see the reinvention that she's gone through. So I asked Pamela, because again we're seeing the character that she plays kind of go through this period in herself where she's trying to adjust to a new reality, where she has to do a job that she doesn't want to do. So I asked Pamela what the worst thing was about being underestimated and being typecast all throughout the industry.
Well, you can only surprise people.
And you've definitely surprised people here.
But, you know, I look back and I think, you know, even though those, you know, those characters, CJ on Barbed Wire, even Valerie Irons in VIP and Barbed Wire, they're Halloween costumes. I mean, because they're not just about the costumes, it's what's in the costume. So there's a lot of heart in all of those roles. And it may not have been, you know, thespian in any way, but also, I was 27 years old when I did Barbed Wire, and I didn't see it until 27 years later. And I watched it in French with English subtitles, because I thought I could stomach it that way. But no, it was great. It was fun. It's look, you're just learning. You're learning. You do it your own way. I took an unorthodox route to get here, and being part of pop culture is a blessing, but it's also a little bit of a deficit. You have to kind of convince people that you're a human being and you have feelings and that there's more to you than meets the eye, and then transform into characters. So you have to fight for it. And I believe in fighting for things, and I love. It's strange that this movie almost slipped through my fingers. It went to an old agent, he passed on it.
I hope you fired that old agent, by the way.
Well, I don't have him anymore. I have a new agent.
Thank God.
Seems though to me that recently in Hollywood, and maybe it's because of the women stars are starting to get a bit older, but we've seen a lot of these films talking about women finding themselves in older years, right? And trying to you know, battling with their youth or the youth culture of Hollywood. We saw Demi Moore doing that.
I was thinking Demi Moore in The Substance.
And then you've got Pamela Anderson now here.
And even Angelina Jolie and Maria, absolutely.
Maria. So it's interesting to see the story of older women is being told, whereas I mean, you couldn't get arrested over the age of 30 in Los Angeles.
Yeah, because you were seen as a has-been.
You were a has, or you played somebody's mum, even at the age of 31, right?
Yeah.
Those were the only roles that were available to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you even got Lee.
Yes.
Right? Again, look.
When it comes to the film industry, isn't necessarily that long of that much of you know, when it comes to box office gross. We're not talking about hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
But these films are still making they're still making money. People are definitely going to see them.
And they're being acclaimed.
Yes, they are, and we're seeing a real reinvention of all these actresses. There is a real feeling this year within Hollywood when we look at Demi Moore, when we look at Angelina Jolie. There's so many narratives about women, these actresses that haven't really received their flowers. They've had these decade-long careers. They're loved by their peer group, but we're seeing this is, and even for example Zoe Saldana, she's one of the most commercially successful actresses. Her films have grossed billions of dollars, but yet has surprisingly never won an Academy Award, never won a Golden Globe, and yet here we are. We're seeing all of these actresses kind of come in with this new narrative of they're finally getting their flowers. And it's very interesting what you were saying about the stories of older women being told. I think it's very much a post-Time's Up, a post-Me Too era, and beauty as a whole and aging is another central theme of The Last Showgirl. And we've discussed Pamela Anderson and the reinvention that she's been going through. She's been going to all the award shows wearing no makeup whatsoever. So I asked her, what does beauty mean to you now as opposed to earlier on in your career?
Well, I've always known that, you know, beauty does come from within, and that, you know, physical beauty is perishable. And, you know, as much as my mom wants me to go out with an eye on, I'm experimenting. This is a social experiment. I'm doing what I think is right now. And she's like, oh, please, just when is this gonna end? So she's funny, she makes me laugh. But, you know, I want to reveal myself. I want to, but in a way that is vulnerable, and you know, it's also a challenge for me too. It's not like I wake up and I look in the mirror and I go, oh, you're ready to go out. I just feel like I'm good enough the way that I am. I want to play characters in film and not in my personal life anymore, because I do, you know, I'm a visual artist in some ways, where the look to me is very important, and as soon as I read a script, I see the character in my head, and it could be anything. So, and Jeff Koons used to tell me every time I walk out the door, it's performance art. Anytime any of us walk out the door, it's performance art. It's how we want to present ourselves to the world. And right now, I feel like this is an intimate moment for me to be able to share myself in this way, and to be able to see pictures sometimes and go, oh boy, well, that's just me, and that's okay. And yeah, we can all get gussied up when we feel like it. And there's a time and a place, and I love makeup and I love glamour, but this is an experiment I'm doing for myself. And I also feel with the way digital photography is these days, and you know, digital cameras, digital HD, that when there's nothing on your skin, I feel like it's at least I can say I'm not wearing makeup instead of wearing makeup but then looking horrible.
I mean,
you know?
Bless her. I mean, good for her.
Good for her.
The whole thing about, you know, having to. Anyway, Josh, thank you very much indeed.
See you next week, Oscars.
Right, back with John Boothman in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and very good to have your company. And with me for the next hour is the fabulous John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. John, good to see you. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, really good actually for a Monday. You know, I mean, I don't know, well, Tuesday, whatever. It's the beginning of the week. Now, I want to just talk to you about this Amesbury chap, right? I know it was one of the stories that you were interested in talking about as well. The Runcorn and Helsby MP, who's been suspended by the party, but obviously he's not suspended from the Commons. So he's still a constituency MP by dint of the fact that he was voted by the people. But in his 10-week jail sentence, he's still getting paid. In fact, he'll earn about 17.5 grand while he's in jail.
There's not that many MPs after they get elected make much of an impact. You don't hear.
Not a physical one, anyway.
I laughed at one headline today saying that he had been convicted after punching a man in the street when it looked as if he'd punched him in the face to me. But anyway, yes, he finds himself in a rather difficult situation now. I think he really has a choice. He can appeal, and during that appeal, in reality, he'll remain a member of the Commons. He'll continue to pick up his wages. But if he doesn't get through an appeal, he's likely to be subject to a petition, what's called a recall petition in the House of Commons. Now, that's under legislation that happened in 2015. Basically, if 10% of the population in his constituency over a period of 6 weeks come up and say that he should be recalled, then there needs to be a by-election in the constituency. Of course, he's always got the option that he could resign. And, you know, that's obviously got big implications for him, but it's got big implications for the political parties. It's worth saying that I think there's only been 6 recall petitions since that legislation. 4 MPs ended up getting dumped. 1 MP, I think the numbers failed. And the 6th MP, I think, resigned before the petition was actually finished. So, you know, the odds are that it's likely, if it does go to a petition, that we will end up with a by-election. And although Labour, I think, won 56% of the vote at the general election, be a difficult by-election in those circumstances for Labour to hold on to. Reform were in second place, but, you know, a good distance behind, I think under 20%. And, you know, I don't imagine the Tories will have much of a chance in such a by-election either. But what is actually quite good about these situations now is at least the electorate, when an MP, an errant MP, who's done something remarkably stupid and ended up convicted of that, at least they've got a chance to get rid of them. Because 2015, that wouldn't necessarily have happened.
But the thing is with this appeal, right, and I've been looking into this, the likelihood that he's only going to mount or say that he might mount an appeal, it gives him a leeway, right? It gives him a bit of time. He's got nothing to appeal on, right? I mean, he can only appeal that his sentence was unduly harsh. I think that's the only appeal that he has a right to. Most people would say that it wasn't unduly harsh. In fact, it should have been longer because he has a position of power and authority, particularly in his constituency, where he lamped this constituent. So it just seems like it's game playing again with taxpayer money. Look, that 10 weeks that you know, he's not going to be able to do any constituency work. He's still going to be taking home 17.5 grand during that time. And a lot of people don't even earn that for a year of hard work. A lot of people are saying, well, hang on a minute, if he can't do the constituency work, then he shouldn't be being paid. It seems unfair, unreasonable. He will then still obviously get the pension that's attached to that. Where's the downside from punching a constituent? You know, I mean, this is a 5 or 10 week free holiday, paid holiday.
I think in terms of the law, he's entitled to appeal. However, what you're saying, I think perhaps should be maybe something the House of Commons could look at about MPs who are in these situations and maybe change the rules in order to cope with the situation you're talking about. You're right, it does seem utterly perverse that, during this period, if he isn't going to be carrying out the functions that he was elected for, that he really should be getting paid that money.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will be really upset about that, and I think rightly so. I genuinely do. I mean, 17.5 grand. Maybe we should give him a bill for his keep while he's in there as well, because I'm sure he'll still be getting his rent paid on his 2 properties, or his London constituency home as well.
Look, it's also worth saying that's it. If we get to the point that we all think it's going to get to, that there's a petition and he loses and he doesn't stand again, it'll be difficult for this guy to pick up a job anywhere.
But it's also, for me, John, there's a conflict of interest here in the Labour Party doing the right thing, because to do the right thing would see a by-election, and they don't want a by-election. They want a by-election as much as I want to go to the dentist next week, right? They don't want it because they know they'll lose it, and that will be, the beginning of a real crack in their position. So are they really going to do the right thing in supporting any petitions or even starting a petition when it will cost them?
Well, I suspect what will happen is that if it gets to the point where, he loses the appeal, that the Labour Party will be out there calling for a petition, to be honest. I mean, we had the situation in Scotland in Rutherglen constituency just before the election, where you might remember there was an MP, a woman called Margaret Ferrier, who was an SNP MP. She was the woman who was dubbed in the press the Cove Idiot. Yeah. MP, because what she did, despite the fact that she'd tested positive for COVID, was she jumped in a train and went to Westminster, went into the chamber, went round about the canteen having her tea, then decided she'd go back up in the train back to her home constituency. She ended up, being convicted in court of breaching these COVID regulations, and subsequently there was a petition in that constituency. The SNP, in fact, supported the petition as far as I can recall, and we had the by-election, and the SNP lost that by-election and Labour won. And Labour held on to that seat at the general election. Yeah,
I'm just not sure I can entirely trust that Labour are going to push ahead, because they do not want reform to win that. And by all accounts, that's exactly what Farage is saying as well. John, I've started looking at the American papers, because there's something little going on over that side of the world. So the New York Times is what I'm looking at for us for tomorrow. And that is, so here we go. First story is Germans switched Conservative as ground shifts. And this, of course, is an election that Elon Musk interfered with.
Look, I mean, I'm very, very struck, I have to say, by the entire front page of the New York Times and how similar the stories are to what's going on here. And one of those stories, as you say, down the wing column there, is all about what happened in Germany. That the right made gains, 29% for Friedrich Merz of the Christian Democrats. He won the election, but the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, the hard right party as it's been called, they were up to 20%. And interestingly, I mean, I was looking at some of the numbers, males between the ages of, I think, 18 and 44, a 30% difference in support for the AfD than amongst females.
Wow.
Which is really, really interesting. Also, a lot of the support coming in the cities, but in particular also from the old Eastern Europe, the Eastern Germany, from Leipzig, and and the states that used to be run by the communists, which seems a bit perverse, some might think, but that's where the support comes from.
But this is as far right as Germany has swung since the Second World War. I mean, this is as right as it has been.
I think that's right. And, you make the right point about Elon Musk in particular, who's been a vociferous supporter. J.D. Vance, in fact, went to meet the leader of the AfD when he was in Germany the other week. And, I have to say, I do think it is slightly odd where you see leading figures associated with in the American government supporting a party like that in Germany when, American troops, alongside British troops and the Allies in the Second World War lost many troops were lost. Many Americans, many Allied troops were lost fighting the hard right Germans the Nazis really.
Yeah, I mean, it is just... It's just a very odd time, isn't it, really? Just another story on the New York Times, because like you said, it's very interesting how this is very outside of the country looking, actually. But this one is particularly interesting because I've been watching some of these town halls taking place because I'm a complete anorak. But anger at town halls hints at a broader backlash. This is Republicans holding those town halls in their constituencies, if you like, and they are seeing, even hardened Republicans turning up to these town halls and literally just standing and shouting at their representative. And they're trying to have to defend some of Trump's policies, one of which will see 69 million women unable to vote because their name isn't the same on their birth certificate as it is on their driver's license.
Again, town hall meetings are a big thing in American politics. These are things actually we've lost in British politics that we used to have, but, obviously still very, very important there. And, what it is it's all very well getting elected on a national platform and having great and fantastic and simple language and slogans about, let's cut this and, we'll have a Department of Government and Efficiency and it's going to cut lots of spending. We're going to do a whole load of other things. You mentioned, that situation with women in their birth certificates, but when that translates back to a local level, well, it's a different story. So as you say, these Republican Congress people going back to their local bases, I think, no doubt in, the first flushes of enthusiasm, so pleased that, that's Trump, he's there, he's been installed, he doesn't have the opposition that he had the last time he was elected. And then they go back to their home patches. And actually, it turns out to be a wee bit of a different story. Yeah,
I mean, it looks like it's getting pretty heated when you have to look people in the eye and who voted for Trump, who've just lost their jobs because of Trump, right? So they're all going, well, it wasn't, I didn't think it was going to be me. I didn't think it was going to be that department that got cut. Even though, as far as I'm concerned, with Trump, he didn't lie. He told everybody what he was going to do. They just thought it wouldn't happen to them.
Well, that's something that happens in politics quite a lot, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah. Let's have a quick look at the Times before we go to a break. Trump invites Zelensky to secure peace in weeks. President says Putin will accept a role for European troops and hints that Britain won't escape tariffs. And there's a rather unedifying picture on the front there of Macron and Donald Trump pretty much holding hands.
What is it they call it? Le bromance. they call it, I think. I felt quite uncomfortable watching these pictures on the television earlier.
Too.
You know, a bit of backslapping going on. I saw Macron
holding his knee.
I know, that's what I was going to say. He leaned over and started touching his knee, right? And I don't know, I lost count of the number of times he called him Dear Donald. So it was pretty excruciating stuff. It'll be quite interesting to see whether on Thursday Keir Starmer will do the same.
I'm really looking forward to that because of course Macron is going to suck up to Trump, right? They don't want these massive tariffs that are coming their way, but it just all looks so creepy. I just, when you know that he hates Trump and Trump hates it, I mean, this is just pathetic. It's just grandstanding.
Well, it is a bit. I mean, look, I was trying to remember there the last time I saw the two of them together. I think it was at the reopening of Notre Dame.
Yes.
And Trump arrived in Paris and actually, was pretty well greeted by Macron, and they looked as if they were good pals. And that was the time, of course, where Prince William got a really, really good, I think I don't know, did he get a hug? I think I remember I watched, Trump thought he was a fine young man and certainly seemed to indicate that he could have a better relationship probably with him than with the Prime Minister. Look, there's loads of stories around tomorrow. It's quite funny watching the international stories develop. Gaza seems to have gone on the back burner for the time being. We are now in this big situation.
It's since the Arab nations told Trump to keep his hands off it, that he's not getting it.
Yeah, so we've got Macron there today. We've got Starmer going later in the week, and let's hope for everybody's sake that doesn't come a bit of a cropper, because I just think a lot of it depends on what kind of mood that Trump's actually in.
Yeah.
So let's hope that goes pretty well. We are still in this very difficult situation, and I think this is what the Times is pointing to, that on the one hand, Trump wants to make a deal with Russia, but at the same time doesn't want Ukraine at the table. He wants Europe to, going forward, secure the peace deal, even though Europe won't be at the table either. And then, of course, there's this amazing question about the rare minerals, which I find absolutely fascinating, that is all part of some kind of deal that goes on, that America wants to get its hands on a share of, $11.3 trillion worth of rare earth minerals that are needed for electric cars, mobile phones.
And Zelensky said, I'm not signing a deal that says 10 generations of Ukrainians have to pay for. I just want to remind you, though, of the worst Trump embarrassing, was when he held Theresa May's hand.
No, I remember that. Do you know, last week... I remember that, yeah, and I remember him walking in front of the Queen.
Yeah,
I had forgotten all about this, but I'm sorry to raise this, but I actually felt it was just utterly cringeworthy. I watched again that clip of the debate between Trump and Kamala Harris, where he started talking about them eating the cats and eating the dogs and eating the pets. And do you know what? I still think when I look at it, somebody's made it up in AI or something, right? It can't be real. But it's just this thing that will always stick in my head about the election. And, well, here we are.
Here we are, indeed. As long as he doesn't try and hold Starmer's hand when they're walking down the steps, I guess that'll be something. Quick break. John Boothman and myself will be back in a sec.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you, and with me is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland, looking at Tuesday's newspapers. John, if we can turn our attention to the Sun just for a moment. A killer 19 years old plotted school massacre. And I had to read this to check that it wasn't in the US, right? Because this is the sort of thing you imagine from the US. But of course, whatever they do over there eventually ends up over here. This is a teenager who murdered 3 of his family, also planned a school massacre.
Yeah, and the Daily Mail has the same story, saying that Nicholas Prosper, 19 years old, he killed his mother and 2 siblings. And the Daily Mail story at least says that he was lifted by the police on his way to do exactly as you said, which is utterly bizarre. And you're right, we're not talking about Louisiana, we're talking about Luton.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we sit here and almost every time I'm on this programme, there's a story like this.
Yeah. I mean, it is so, it is not something that we are, like I said, used to, really. The idea of that sort of, you know, blind anger and going into a school and, you know, I mean, we've seen it, but you know, Dunblane, for example, but it's just not something that we are routinely used to, and yet it seems like we're having to routinely get used to it.
Well, I think that's right. But, you know, I think the one thing that we can point to, and you mentioned the Dunblane massacre, that Dunblane situation ended up with the banning of handguns in this country. I remember covering that story. Dreadful story. In Dunblane, I can remember Michael Forsyth, who was the Conservative Secretary of State, going there with George Robertson, later the Secretary for Defence. George Robertson actually lives in Dunblane. You know, them going to the school. I remember being there the day after, outside the hospital, and it was just utterly dreadful. But it resulted, as I say, in the banning of handguns, and I suppose that's the difference between these situations here, even though we seem to read about them more often than we would like, and the situations in America, and also, of course, the scale of any of these massacres that happen in America usually seems to be much bigger. We are talking about automatic rifles being involved. We are talking about, you know, situations where quite often, you know, tens of people are killed. And yet, you know, there is such support because of the constitutional rights that people have in America. Well, such support not to do anything about guns.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine why you'd need an assault rifle for defence, if that's what they're there for. But yeah, I mean, look, thank goodness it was prevented. We know the Southport attack wasn't prevented. And I don't know what the answer is to these young men just wanting to go out and just murder innocent people. I don't know what the answer is to that. Let's have a look at The Guardian now. Right, how members of the Lords benefit from commercial interests. But the Commons do as well, right?
The rules are different. And yeah, I mean, I think that this is a big series, I think, that The Guardian's going to be doing over the coming days, where they're going to look at the commercial interests of people in the Lords. It is possible for people in the Lords to take a leave of absence, for example, if they have, you know, big jobs that they want to do. You know, they would take a leave of absence. They can come back at a later date. But, you know, some of the situations that they are pointing up there, I mean, they talk, I think, of a former cabinet minister having 30 commercial deals with companies where, well, lots of money can be made. And as I say, I think the rules about registration are different in the House of Lords, and it seems to be a pretty lax regime compared certainly to the House of Commons.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much the money, because they get paid per day that they show up, right, and go to sleep mostly.
But 350 quid or
something like
Lords,
that.
yeah.
So they don't get that money if they don't turn up.
Sure.
But it's more to do, my worry is always with influence rather than if they're earning a bit of money. It's the fact that then if they've got those commercial companies, they've got that interest, they've got that foothold into our second chamber, and that's always, for me, the big concern.
Yeah, and also the possibility of, people have dinners and lunches and events in the Commons, and other MPs as well as Lords would turn up to these things. So there's a lot about access that would be important in any of these kind of situations. And I think it probably, again, is something that I think maybe after this, that the authorities in Parliament might want to have a look at, because, as I say, the rules are very different between the two houses. Look, there's a wider question here, and it's a wider question that has been grappled with for a very, very long time about whether or not the House of Lords is fit for purpose, whether or not the House of Lords could be replaced. You'll remember only a couple of years ago, Gordon Brown produced a big report suggesting that it should be turned into a chamber of, well, really the nations and regions. So that you could have...
There's too much influence there. I mean, this is the problem. Labour don't want to get rid of it any more than the Tories do, because they can buy people off with these peerages. And you know it, and I know it, and they keep talking about changing it, but of course there's no real will to do it.
No, I think that's right. I mean, how many times have I can certainly think of, going back maybe 30 years, people have talked about abolishing the Lords or change it. And what happens all the time is that marginal changes are made all too slowly. We'll cut down the number of hereditary peers. We'll set an age limit by which people have to retire, and so on and so forth. And then they have, if somebody dies, very strange elections between, usually two old men, right? Hardly anybody votes, and one of them wins and gets a place. And you're right, twice a year we get the annual ritual of who's going to get into the House of Lords and who's not, and who's going to be in the Prime Minister's leaving list. I mean, we had so many Conservative Prime Ministers, there was a leaving list quite often, right, of who was going to get into the Lords. So, I don't know. We talk... Look, on the one hand, I say all that, and I point up all these problems. On the other hand, I have to say, right, that the Lords sometimes carries out some really, really valuable work in terms of scrutinising legislation.
Yeah, we do need them there.
And they've got real experts.
They have, right? Proper experts.
That the House of Commons doesn't have.
Yeah.
And actually,
I agree.
I think that's actually really important for the passage of it, decent watertight legislation.
Yeah, I was once taken to lunch, actually, in the Lords restaurant. Very nice. And I don't know if they were trying to buy influence. They didn't get any. But I got a menu. There was two menus. So it was the lady, actually, who took me, Baroness? Lady, who took me for lunch. And she got one menu and I got one with no prices on it. Very classy.
Yeah, but it's also sort of...
Very classy.
I think I tell a very funny story about myself and a colleague being invited for, I think it was like afternoon tea in the House of Lords, and it was like stepping back to the 1930s or something, because it was all silver service and stuff like that. And I don't think we had afternoon tea in the end, but I remember the person who took us ordered a pot of Earl Grey and what was it, muffins and strawberry jam for 3 or something. But it was like, it was stepping into a different age.
It's worth doing even just once, right? I mean, just to be treated like that and to see the white glove service, it is something. John, we've got to take a break. I leave you with your muffins, and we'll be back in just a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, you are with Talk, and it's Petrie here with you and with me until the top of the hour is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. John, we're looking at the Independent now, and the two top stories there. The first one, Labour MP jailed for 10 weeks after punching a man in a drunken street row. Runcorn and Helsby MP Mike Amesbury was denied bail pending an appeal, raising that prospect, as you rightly said, of a potential by-election. I have to say, he does look like somebody who would punch somebody. I don't know. I don't know. Just saying. And also the Ukraine crisis there. Zelensky offers an olive branch to Trump. It seems like their narrative, the rhetoric between the two men has calmed down a little bit.
Yeah, see, I think this is, looking at the way that Trump's operated over the years, I can remember, was there not a great row not long after Zelensky was there about Joe Biden and Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and Trump wanted some action from Zelensky about it, and it never happened.
Oh, yeah,
and
there was something.
I think Donald Trump is good at harbouring grudges, which, is no laughing matter.
Not for Starmer, it isn't, no.
Well, here we are now in that very, very difficult situation where, it is, again, it seems to me, passing strange to say the least, that somehow or other that Zelensky and the Ukrainians shouldn't be at the table. And, I think there's Zelensky himself offering to really pack it in if somehow or other, it can help to actually get them a proper place and negotiating place to get, anything sorted out. There's been the other thing that's happened, of course, earlier on today is a vote in the United Nations, which basically the Americans sided with the Russians and the North Koreans, it's been reported, in basically not blaming Russia for starting the war. And I mean, one of the reasons we're talking about this so much today is today's the 3rd anniversary of the full invasion by Russia of Ukraine.
You can't rewrite history. It's not even that long ago. It's 3 years ago.
And America can't bring itself to vote for a resolution saying that somehow or other that Russia were the aggressors in this situation. The other thing that I think I was reading there is that today that Trump has pointedly refused to call Putin a dictator, yet was quick enough to call Zelensky a dictator last week.
My favourite is actually Zelensky's retort to being called a dictator by Trump. He said, "No, I wasn't offended by being called a dictator," which, of course, a dictator would have been. So it was just like, you know, I think he's a class act, Zelensky. I don't care what anybody says. You know, my support goes 100% to Ukraine and to Zelensky. He's what a real leader, I think, looks like.
Well, I can, you know, we sit and we talk about the implications for security for Western Europe, and these are big, and we're all going to have to pay for all of this, no matter how it turns up. You know, you can't just turn on a tap and increase your defence spending from 2.5% to 3%, if that's where it ends up. Rachel Reeves is away talking to her European counterparts about this, I think, tomorrow. Trump, in fact, wants 5%, but what that actually means is that, you know, taxpayers in Britain are going to have to pay for that, or there's going to have to be more borrowing for that. And the other thing I was thinking about earlier, and let's not forget this, the people who are really, really worried about some of this stuff are, well, obviously the people in Ukraine. They're worried that if there is a peace, that, and I heard some of this in the radio earlier on today, if there is a peace, it'll only be a respite which will give Putin time to recover and rearm, and he'll come back for another bite at a later date. If you live in any of the states surrounding Russia, whether that be Georgia or Moldova or the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, all of these people who used to be satellite states, you know, or either within, but either in the Soviet Union or just outside the Soviet Union, you know, this is just like absolutely frightening that Trump has changed sides. At least that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And it looks as if Putin's going to get a victory.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we've got a permanent presence of troops in Latvia at the moment, but you know, if we end up having to police a green line between Russia and Ukraine, those troops will have to leave there and do that duty, which leaves Latvia open. I mean, I think appeasement has been proven not to work ever. And if there is a sense of appeasement, even for Trump, for Putin, he's going to love this. He got it with Crimea, for goodness sake. I mean, look at it. We appeased him over that. Look what happened 4 years later or something.
Yeah, and the other bits of the Ukraine he's going to get to keep.
Yeah, exactly that, as a reward. Well, I don't know. Let's have a look at the Metro. No, they've gone with a very different front page. Crackdown on sex offender name changes. No hiding place for predators. This is Jess Phillips says abusers go to extreme lengths. Of course they will, but they will no longer be able to change their names. I just don't know how they're going to be able to stop that, but there you go.
Look, it seems to be pretty easy, I think, in this country just to change your name.
Yeah.
I think this is a really interesting story. Legislation starting tomorrow in the House of Commons in order to stop that happening, meaning that anybody, I think, with a conviction who wants to change their a conviction related to offences, sex offences or offences against children, or I think domestic abuse offences, will have to obtain special permission in order to do that. You know, we live in a world where, you know, there's all sorts of disclosures whenever anybody goes for jobs or anything like that. So it must be possible somehow or other to do this, but I think it's a problem. And, you know, it's clearly something that's showing up in terms of, you know, anything that the police are doing in terms of arresting people. They also obviously would want to find out what people's history is. And if people have changed their names, these things become even more difficult.
I mean, they're talking about cracking down on using fake names online. There's just, why even say that when it's not going to be possible to do that? I mean, I could set up an email account in the break using a completely different name, right? I mean, it seems to me to be, why say it when you can't deliver it?
Look, I think it might be easier to do what they're proposing in this legislation than it certainly would be to do online, to be honest. But I think it's becoming an increasing problem.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, I mean, I just wish when there was a problem, they found a real solution to it rather than dangling this kind of useless stuff, like with knives. We're going to make it more difficult to buy a knife. It doesn't make any difference at all. If somebody wants to stab somebody, they use a screwdriver or a broken bottle. It's got no... I'm bored of hearing these easy answers, right?
I wish I had £1 for the number of times that I've heard there's going to be legislation banning knives, including some of what I think are kind of very, very odd ideas about, you know, we won't be able to buy knives that have got sharp points in the end of them, that they've all got to be rounded, right? Which was the kind of latest thing. But again, you know, I'm sure all of this stuff's well-intentioned. Some of it's just virtue signalling, but the practicalities of doing the sort of things that are proposed are much, much more difficult.
Do you know what? It's just distraction. It's just stupid. Just tell me something that you're actually going to do instead of just saying, oh, this will be good, and when we all know it won't. John, thank you for now. Time to find out, though, John, I don't know, John can't take part in this, I don't think, how you could be in with a chance of winning 25 grand.
It's competition time, and we're giving you a chance to win a whopping £25,000. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
So 25 grand, there you go. Those are the details. I'm going to take a very quick break now, but John Boothman and I will be back in just a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you and with John Boothman till the top of the hour. The Daily Express for Tuesday, Reeves urge to stop state pension being taxed. Now, this has all got to do with the tax-free allowance, hasn't it? So after 12, and I think it's 12 and a half grand, just over 12 and a half grand, which is a tax-free allowance. Once the pensions go over that, they are subject to tax. And she's been told not to do that.
It's a pretty speculative kind of story, right, to be honest. Campaigners are warning that I think it's, I mean, look, the answer to this is very simple. It's just to change the threshold.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens anyway, depending on what the rate of inflation is. So I think a wee bit of a scare story from the Express here. I think it would be very, very difficult, and particularly given her record and her recent record with old age pensioners, for Rachel Reeves to manage to walk straight into a great big pothole like this. So, it's an interesting story, but I'm not sure it's going anywhere, and it's not going to happen very quickly if it happens at all.
No, it isn't, and because the next rise is to 11,973. So it's a way yet to that £12,500 that the rest of us have to start paying tax after. I just wanted to draw our attention to this. Killing Me Softly singer Roberta Flack has died at the age of 88.
Very, very sad. Very sad. A beautiful singer and a beautiful song.
Beautiful song.
There's been clips of her running, all this evening, and just one of those, great American black women singers, Aretha Franklin, a whole bunch of American women singers, and it's just sad to see this.
Yeah, because this was a real sort of renaissance, wasn't it? It was a real moment. In musical terms, where women started to come through, and these beautiful, like you said, these black women with these strong voices, and to be able to do that at that time was quite extraordinary.
I agree entirely. Just again, another sad thing.
Yeah, we're losing all the greats. We really are. Talking of greats, the Daily Star. We love a bit of Daily Star. Apparently, wolves, they're brilliant. I love that. Just a little box there with a picture of a wolf on it saying they're brilliant. I couldn't agree more. But Boffin warns we'll need lots of luck and plenty of nuclear warheads to stop the pesky asteroid destroying Earth. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this asteroid is a city destroyer as opposed to an Earth destroyer. But the odds are narrowing on how close this thing is going to get to us, and they're now saying it could hit us.
I think the odds are still pretty narrow, mind you. So, I mean, was there not a film that I keep seeing repeated on the TV that Bruce Willis or somebody is in? About a big asteroid approaching the planet.
Yeah, I can't remember what that was called. What was that? Anybody remember? Armageddon.
Armageddon, that's right. And they send the rocket up, and the rocket's not going to work, so they have to ask the Chinese to help us or something.
And then don't they land on it and start drilling into it? Yeah, all very unlikely, I would say.
I don't know what the wolf story is, right? But there was a story here last week about, there is often talk about the reintroduction of wolves, particularly to the north of Scotland.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's been happening in the past couple of weeks is some campaigners, we think, seem to be releasing animals into the wild. There were 4 lynx released into the wild in Scotland in the past couple of weeks. There was, I think, I can't remember certainly I think a number of feral pigs were released in the Highlands as
and
well.
That's scary.
Somebody seems to think that this is a good idea, just to reintroduce these animals into Scotland, into the Highlands, into the wild, as part of some guerrilla rewilding programme. Suffice to say, the authorities are not particularly chuffed about this, but I don't suspect we'll see any wolves.
Yeah, I was just wondering while you were talking there, where I would get a lynx from to release it.
I don't know whether these have been, they come from Europe or something like that, right? But certainly they've been bred. I think I don't know where, but certainly and released in the Highlands. Look, there's been some pretty successful. Wolves are reintroduced in parts of America, and they've completely changed the environment and the ecology in the places where they actually have been released. And here, there's different species, have been released in Scotland, for example, sea eagles. Very, very successful. Occasionally you'll get stories of sheep farmers, though, complaining about their sheep being attacked and killed by sea eagles, but there's been a successful reintroduction of that. Beavers is another thing that's happened in Scotland as well. But I think, as I say, wolves are probably a step too far.
Yeah, no, a beaver, fabulous. There was a story, wasn't there, with beavers that a council had been talking for years about redirecting a river or something, and that beavers just went in and did it within a week.
Yeah, well, they build dams. Again, they change the ecology.
Yeah.
But they've been pretty successfully introduced in small numbers in various parts of Scotland. You also get stories. The other stories that you get, certainly in the Western Isles, there's been issues with mink. Someone in a private estate had brought mink to the estate. The mink have escaped. I remember. You may remember the former leader of the SNP, a guy called Ian Blackford, who lived in Skye. And Ian, I can remember speaking to him one weekend a couple of years ago in some distress because a mink had got into his hen house on his croft in Skye. And he said, I can still remember him saying to me when he opened the front of the hen house, it was like an abattoir inside.
Yeah, they're pretty vicious, mink.
Yep.
Yeah, I used to holiday in Skye when I was a kid. But also it says here on the front page, which is a beautiful part of the world, Gen Z getting hooked on fishing. And they love their seagull pictures, the Star, for some reason. But that's the Daily Star, full of useful and wonderful information there. The Mirror for Tuesday saying that taking back our towns. Nah, we've heard all this before, haven't we?
I mean, I was kind of slightly bamboozled about this. I mean, what do they mean?
I don't know.
I'm sure it's a good idea.
Today vows to tackle the crime epidemic that has blighted Britain for years, blah, blah, blah. Home Secretary is bringing in 50 new laws. They love a new law, Labour, don't they? There's hundreds of them all the time. To tackle crooks who have flourished due to Tory police cuts. They don't need laws. They just need police. I mean, this is nonsense.
But this is what politicians do.
They love it.
Parliaments, whether it's the Scottish Parliament, the Welsh Assembly, Westminster, the one thing they can do is pass laws. Laws don't deliver necessarily
the objectives
useless. that they want them to deliver.
I mean, look, let's go through it. It's already against the law to shoplift. It's already against the law to vandalise. It's already against the law to have antisocial behaviour. It's already against... I mean, what 50 new laws are they bringing in? Walking on the cracks in the pavement. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. All of these laws, I bet you, are covered already, and they're just not being policed. So what 50 new laws? What?
Well, but I'm sure it will help us take back our towns.
I'm sure you're absolutely right. I just can't even imagine what 50 new laws they can possibly invent, let alone that are needed. One thing I did want to mention to you, John, just before we go, it's on the top of the Times. I don't know if you shop at Aldi. Or any of these. Do you shop at Aldi?
Yeah. Well, we'll go. Yeah.
Well, you could get a posh new food at Aldi now. Wagyu beef is on sale at Aldi.
Marbled beef, very nice indeed.
Very nice.
One of the things I find really interesting is that the way things have changed in terms of our food habits. You know, it used to be maybe 10 years ago that sirloin steak was a thing to have, right? But sirloin steak doesn't have any fat in it, right? So
yeah, no, it's
actually
horrible.
now it's ribeye steak that people now buy because it's slightly marbled. And the Wagyu beef, I think was Japanese beef. We now have some of these cows being bred here. Therefore making these things more available.
Aren't they massaged every day or something?
I think so, but I'll tell you what, they also massage your wallet because I think that's very, very expensive compared to the normal stuff you would buy. But again, it's interesting that places like Aldi would be selling this stuff.
Yeah, that's Wagyu beef, lobster, the lot. I don't have an Aldi near me, otherwise I might even have to give it a go. But yeah, I just wondered how posh you were, really, John. I think you've answered my question. Thank you.
No, I just go to the ones that are the nearest. It's easier.
Thank you, John Boothman. Thank you very much indeed. Right. Coming up, it's just you and me now. So no guests, no nothing, just a couple of breaks. But I want to talk to you. That's my whole reason for doing this show, to be honest with you. So we're talking about what you think should happen to MPs who break the law, as we find out that Mike Amesbury, who's been jailed for 10 weeks, is still getting paid his £91,000 worth of salary. That works out, Sam worked it out, it is 17.5 grand, while he's not able to be a constituency MP. So he'll also get his pension paid and all of that kind of stuff as well. So I want to know what you think should happen to an MP. I mean, he wasn't just a silly thing. He thumped someone. Give me a call.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And this is your hour. It is the only hour that's cleared of all guests and everything, just so that we can talk. So that's what we're going to do. And what I want to talk to you about is this thug, this MP from Runcorn and Helsby, Mike Amesbury, now jailed for 10 weeks. You must have seen the filming of it. It was filmed by somebody with a mobile phone, two people actually with a mobile phone, as he thumped a constituent. Now, constituents probably can be quite annoying, especially when you've had a lot to drink and you just want to get home and you're waiting at a taxi rank and someone comes up to you and goes, "You lot," you know, whatever he said. I don't know what he said, but whatever he said, it's not okay. It's not okay for anybody to thump anybody, just in case you were wondering. But for an MP to thump the person who pays his wages is even more not okay. And I think that we have every right to hold our members of Parliament to a higher standard. I think that's okay. I think there are people in society that we expect to behave in a better way than perhaps we might ourselves. The police, anybody in the medical profession, and definitely MPs. All of whom we pay for. We pay their wages. People at the council, they may think that you work for them, but actually they work for us. So an MP who's not on a tatty old wage, right? He's on 91 grand at the moment. I think it's going up to 95 this year. But £91,000 a year is a blooming good salary. I'd like to be on it. That'd be nice, thank you very much. I'm sure you'd quite like to be on it. It also gets expenses. Also, if he's got a flat in London, that's all covered by us as well. And their heating bills. And their journeys to and from London, and their constituency office. All of it paid for by us. We have every right to expect that they behave better. And this man punches, not just once. I mean, if you haven't seen it, you really ought to look it up. Not right now, I'll tell you about it. Just thwacks him, right? Just punch, full throttle punches. I mean, it made John Prescott look like a pussycat, to be fair. So anyway, he's now been convicted, right? We know that. He was handed a sentence today of 10 weeks in jail. He appealed about a custodial sentence. So he will immediately serve 40% of the immediate custodial sentence, so not even all of it. The rest of it will be on tag, I presume. Labour Party took swift action, and he's no longer a Labour MP or a member of the Labour Party. So fundamentally, he's an independent now. But he still gets paid. So while he's in jail, while he's incapacitated by the sentence, he will earn around £17,500, which is a lot more than a lot of people earn in a year of hard graft. And during that time, he won't be able to go to meetings. He won't be able to, you know, I suspect he won't be able to travel much. I don't know. But certainly while he's in prison, he's basically getting paid holiday. I mean, it's probably not going to be much fun. Unless, like I said earlier, he's looking forward to getting a tattoo from his new prison boyfriend. Which, I mean, I'm not judging. I am not judging. But still, we're paying his wages, people. And particularly for those who are in Runcorn and Houseby. And I've heard a lot of clips of them saying, no, he's a really good MP, he's just made one mistake. But what a mistake! And could you trust him? If he was my MP, I'd be a little bit reluctant to spend any time with him. We deserve better. And they deserve to not be paid while they can't do constituency work. It's my view. But I'd like yours, because this is an open forum. All opinions welcome. All voices welcome. There's no bar to anybody. Why should they continue to get paid? Well, we're told that unless they're imprisoned for a year, right, there's no recall. So they can't force him to resign. They can't force him to do anything. He could stay on as an independent. And make no mistake about it, this so-called appeal that he's thinking about, if he appeals his sentence, because that's the only appeal he's got. He was banged to rights. I mean, it was filmed, right? So there's no, oh, did he do it, didn't he do it? The only thing, he thinks it's an unfair sentence. Well, most of us don't think it's an unfair sentence. But that's just a delaying tactic, during which time he's getting paid. So we can only ask him to resign and do the decent thing. But he's not going to do that, is he, until he absolutely has to. The only other way that he can be recalled is if 1 in 10 of his constituents sign a petition, and then that will force a by-election. But I have serious doubts whether Labour are going to encourage that petition, because they don't want a by-election, because they know they'll lose it. They think that Reform will win it. And so, by the way, does Reform. So, what do we do with MPs that break the law? I'm fuming that we're paying his wages. Who else gets paid while they're in prison? Who else? I don't get paid unless I'm sitting in this chair. Even a holiday, no. Sick, no. Why should he get paid while he's in prison? With his new friend Manuel? I don't know. Georgina is in London. Hello, Georgina.
Good morning, Petrie. And you look wonderful in that chair.
Oh, thank you. I'm very grateful.
May I have a little bit of a rant?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. As an MP, you are expected to be a pillar of your community, a role model, so to speak. I know nobody's perfect, Petrie. I know that, and I'm sure we've all got the odd skeleton or two in our closet. But when you start bare-knuckle fighting in the street with an opposing constituent, causing actual bodily harm after consuming copious amounts of firewater, or when you stand up in front of the House of Lords and tell lies, that is tantamount to a criminal offence. Then that is where we have to draw the line. This most certainly is not the impression that any political party would want to project. Gross misconduct is a behaviour most unbecoming to a member of the public, never mind a member or former member of the present government. You just can't make excuses for this.
No, I agree. And in my contract, and in every contract that I've ever signed and ever seen, bringing the company into disrepute is an immediately sackable offence.
Absolutely.
So why isn't it for MPs? Because presumably this is bringing the Labour Party into disrepute, right, immediately. So you would be immediately fired. I would be, immediately. No question, and no right to recourse, no right to question it.
I think the offending individual should be sacked and removed from all public office post-haste, with any pensions or payments should be stopped with immediate effect. No excuses. It certainly does look as though Mr Starmer's front bench will be a lonely place to sit if he takes action against all offending individuals. I really can't understand why the perpetrating gentleman hasn't been removed from all office already.
Yeah, well, he can't be because of the way I suppose our democracy works. He was voted by the people of Runcorn and Helsby, and only they can insist that he is recalled. So that's why, because the Labour will say, well, look, we didn't elect him. He, he belongs to those constituents, even if he does want to punch them. But I'm with you. I think there should be a term that the rest of us have to sign that says if you bring your company into disrepute, you're fired.
Well, he should be thoroughly ashamed of himself, his conduct, and he should do the right thing and resign.
What do you think, though, Georgia, of people who might say, he made a mistake, he's a really good bloke?
I'm sorry, no. Keir Starmer is so stringent on abiding by the law, he has put it from pillar to post. We will be stringent with the law. I'm sorry, there's no variation on the truth. I've seen the video this evening. I was absolutely appalled.
It's shocking, isn't it?
I wouldn't want to go to that man to ask for help. I would be living in fear of my being.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust him. If I saw him walking down the street, I'd be a bit sideways. He had a drink tonight. I mean, it just seems to be...
vicious behaviour.
Yeah.
I don't understand how anyone could see that who is in the present government and think, oh, well, he was having a bad day or he's had a few drinks. That's
well, he's been chucked out of the Labour Party. They would argue they've done everything that they can do. He hasn't been thrown out of the House of Commons, though. That is very specific. So he's been thrown out of the Labour Party. He's been thrown out of, being a member, all of those things. But because he was voted for by his constituents, they can't just sack him. So he's an independent now, and it will be up to them. If he wants to hang on now until the next election as an independent, he can.
Well, that's disgraceful. If we're paying his wages, I think that is absolutely disgraceful. And let me tell you, if that had have been a normal member of the public who had gone into a fight with such velocity, they would have got 2 years.
I tend to agree with you. I think that if it, looking at the nature of that fight, I think it would have been a bigger deal. And I think it should be a bigger deal that it was an MP that did it, like if it was a police officer.
Like you said earlier, Petrie, we've all had awful things said to us. I mean, you're in the public eye all the time. I'm quite sure that people say things to you also. The last thing that we would ever do is to start some kind of physical fracas. You have got to have some kind of control over your actions. And if you have actions that are reprehensible, you have to pay the price.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it would be easily solved by saying, right, in everybody's contract now, it says if you bring your office into disrepute, the job of being an MP, that is it. You are fired. There is no payoff. There is no, retire. They get 20 grand or something if they're voted out. No, none of that. You're gone. And maybe that would teach them to behave themselves a bit better.
Well, I think it'd be a little bit of a deterrent, but thank you so much for letting me have a rant. I can go to bed easy now.
Bless you. Got it off your chest. Good for you. Georgia, lovely to talk to you. Thank you so, so much. Right, let's talk to Gemma, who's in Staffordshire. Gemma, you do not agree with that?
Not entirely, although I think she's made lots of very good points, I have to say. All I'm worried about, apart from the obvious, which is everything that Georgina's worried about, funnily enough, is if he's got some dependent children or possibly grandchildren or possibly parents that have been, prior to his ridiculously stupid mistake, are dependent on his salary for those 10 weeks in order to live and breathe and pay their own mortgages and care and all the rest of it, they are going to lose out. Those children or family members I would have thought, lose out as a consequence of him losing out on £17,000 that he will be earning when he's in prison. And I'm wondering if that's been taken into account by the judge.
Well, the only thing is that in answer to that is, why is he being treated different to anybody else who would go to jail? If I punched somebody and I ended up going to jail for it, I have dependents, right? But that wouldn't be taken into consideration.
No.
They wouldn't. My dog wouldn't get his Wagyu beef, which he doesn't get. And his lobster tail for dinner. And my son wouldn't get help with his rent. But nobody would consider that. Anybody else that goes to jail doesn't continue getting their salary. And also, I think, if the thought of losing your salary and losing being able to support those people, that should act as a form of deterrent.
Yes.
There isn't one if you just end up in jail and you still get in loads of dosh.
Okay, but let's just remember that the Labour Party is in power, the Conservative Party is a party, and the Reform Party is a company. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're right. Yeah.
So if you were working with Reform and you did this, you would lose your salary if you went to prison. Is that right?
No, the parliamentary rules would still apply because you're being paid by the taxpayer.
Yeah, but they're a company.
Yeah, I know, but that is for the purpose of bringing money in and spending it.
Fair enough.
But if they're MPs, they're subject to the same rules, same laws, the same payment method as anybody else.
Well, I have to say it's very confusing, and I do think that he should do time in jail, but I still think there should be provision made somehow for him, for his dependents, for those 10 weeks, so that they don't suffer as a consequence of their relations' action.
What about those rioters, though, in Southport who went to jail? And their dependents wouldn't have got
I didn't agree with that. But then, you see, the way I look at that is that the Prime Minister has literally been in power for 5 minutes at this point, and no matter how much of a sir you are, or Crown prosecution, lawyer, human rights, whatever, saxophonist, negotiator, head of the most unfree speech country in the world, no matter how good you are, you're not going to be able to do everything that you said you would try to do. And I think he got that wrong. He overreacted, but that's the kind of thing that somebody who's
but the point still stands, Gemma, that those people went to jail for varying amounts of time. Some of them 10 weeks, some of them 3 months. There was no consideration to their dependents. So why should we show consideration to an MP?
Well, only insofar as it's only 10 weeks. It should be longer. I can't believe it's only 10 weeks. I mean, how do I put this politely? There was a gentleman on Kevin's show who spent some time in Mozambique. I lived there for 3 years. Okay, if a member of Parliament in Mozambique punched a constituent of their borough, whatever you call it in Africa, I can't remember now, place, right? They'd be hundreds of people beating him up, and he probably wouldn't survive the attack. There wouldn't be prison because he wouldn't make it there. That is, and there are some governments, and there's the European Union, where punch-ups have happened live on camera.
Yeah.
And I don't...
Listen, Gemma, I don't agree that some consideration should have been shown to him or his dependents because it isn't shown to any other prisoner.
I'm not an expert, and I didn't really know that, so I would have to reconsider my view then, I think, a little bit.
Oh, excellent. We like that. Gemma, lovely to talk to you. I'm going to take a break. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good morning to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And we're talking about Mike Amesbury, who's been jailed for 10 weeks. Well, I mean, that's the sentence. He'll serve about four or 5 weeks, won't he? But I'm just wondering, he's still getting paid. And he pleaded guilty. Well, he had no choice. You've seen the video, right? It'd be dumb. And has now been sentenced. But he might appeal. The only thing he can appeal is the actual sentence. I think he should be careful appealing that, because it might turn out they go, yeah, it was a bit too lenient. We'll give you a bit longer. So I'm wondering, what do you think about what we should do with MPs? I don't know why their contract isn't a standard contract. You bring the party into disrepute, you get fired, and you don't get a chance. If I did something like that and I was caught on camera, Talk would be absolutely within their rights just to say, right, this clause in your contract that states if you do anything that makes us look bad, we can fire you. That's it. End of story. I'd be gone. And most of the contracts that you've ever signed in your life will say the same thing. It's a get out for many companies if you behave badly. Why aren't MPs held to that? And why is he continuing to get paid while he's in jail? Why? I mean, you can't really say he's an MP. He's not a member of Parliament, is he? Maybe it's member of prison. Maybe that's what that MP stands for. That's why we're still paying him. But he's not going to be going to constituency meetings, is he? He's not going to be popping up in the Commons to ask a valid question on behalf of his constituents. I mean, there's some question as whether he can do that while he's on tag. I mean, presumably he will. Secure the security. I'm sure the security at the House of Commons will just love that. So why is he still getting paid? That just is not, it's not right. But who cares? Who cares? It's only taxpayers' money, isn't it? It's only taxpayers' money. Loads of that around, isn't there? Couple of messages I want to read before we go to the phones. And Jack says, morning Petrie, I hope all is well. Thank you, it is. The answer to your big question, yes, absolutely. If an MP breaks the law, they should lose their salary. It's all about keeping things fair and maintaining trust in our government. When elected officials mess up, it hurts their credibility and the whole democratic system. Taking away their salary is a way to hold them accountable and remind anyone that the law applies to everyone, including them. And that's from Jack in Media City in Manchester, which is very cool. And Gary said, I totally agree with you that MPs who break the law should lose their salary and their pensions. They should not only be held responsible for their actions, but made examples of. And that's Gary. And that's the thing, isn't it? That they are working for us. That is their job. And if they're unable to work for us, then why are they getting paid by us? Right? I don't understand it. Andrew is on the line now from Warrington. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Petrie. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well. I just wanted to say you read out some messages at New Year for me about dogs and pets and things, and it was very comforting for me.
Oh,
However,
good.
Thank you. So about today's subject, I want to, first of all, say I agree with all the callers, all the messages, and your good self. However, I just want to play devil's advocate, having been in a similar situation, which I may or may not discuss through our conversation. He has been caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if he was an honourable gentleman or an honourable person, if you want to call it in this day and age, he should just step back, resign, accept nothing. And I agree with you, accept no pay, and this, that, and the other. And if, God forbid, it was me in that situation, I would do that. But I think what we don't see is the provocation. Bearing in mind, obviously, he was inebriated, but in all the footage, we don't see the provocation. And I think, not stepping into the political arena too much, he's certainly, since Labour came into power, on the back foot. Your response, please.
Yeah, I don't think there's any excuse to lamp somebody. He threw the first punch.
Correct.
It doesn't matter what the provocation is. People don't go around punching people, and they shouldn't. And also, he's punching from one degree or another a taxpayer who's paying his wages in his own constituency, who may or may not have voted for him, but that's not the point. He is there to serve all constituents, whether they voted for him or not, and that's his job. So if somebody is in his face and saying, I think your policy on this is rubbish, or that we don't know what was said.
But that's only conjecture,
nobody
isn't it,
deserves.
Patsy? That's only conjecture because we don't see the other side, do we? Let's be fair.
But what could he have said that made it okay to be punched in the head?
Oh, come on, Petrie. Come on. Let's be grown up here.
I am.
I am not.
I've never punched anybody in the head.
I am not defending what he did, and I think it was abhorrent. But let's just, in a flash moment, it could have been anything.
But what does it matter?
What he should do is, resign, step back, and throw the towel in, and say, "Look, okay, that's fine."
But I'm just interested that you think there is something that could have been said that warranted that response.
Oh, Petrie, come on, let's. There is
no, genuinely. What do you think?
Well, I don't know, because we're now getting into conjecture, and we're getting into the guessing.
No, but you started that. Now, hang on a minute, Andrew.
Don't you think he was ashamed?
Andrew, you started that by suggesting there could be something that was said.
Yes.
That warranted that. You started that conjecture. So yes. I'm just asking you now, what would, in your view, would justify an MP punching somebody in the head?
Being an MP of that particular party, if that gives you your answer.
Well, I don't know what you mean.
Okay, so let me explain. I think he was ridiculed or abused.
Fine.
Or
I've been ridiculed and abused.
Or whatever, about his political standing, and let's be clear now here, and I'm speaking from a personal point of view, that since Labour came into power in July last year, they stripped pensioners of the £300 winter fuel allowance, and my mother is a casualty of that. So if I'd have been in that situation, and if that was the situation, I may personally have made a comment, but again,
you would have every right to do as a constituent without getting punched in the head.
Correct,
so
absolutely right. But what I'm saying is he was inebriated, and what I'm saying is, but this is the point I'm saying, he's inebriated and he's reacted. So really, and I agree, we're not in a conflict of discussion here. He needs to take his punishment, and I agree with you. He'll only get 4 weeks, if that.
Yeah.
Okay, but he shouldn't be bloody paid, and the system is twisted, and the system is wrong, and our taxpayers' money is being misdirected, not to our liking, and at this moment in time, without going on to a different subject, I don't know what the answer is, because it's always been that way.
Yeah, but it doesn't need, like I said, Andrew, that if you everybody else signs a contract saying if you bring your company into disrepute, you can be fired immediately. I don't know why that isn't the case.
You were in the conversation.
Yeah,
I've been in that situation. I have
on the receiving end or on the
on the receiving.
Yeah.
I've reacted, and you know what I did? I went, you know what? You're absolutely right, and I resigned because I knew I was bringing the company into disrepute, and I knew that I was in the wrong.
And it was out, even though it was out of character, even though you'd not.
Absolutely, it was.
No, you're right too. We see, but that's a measure of you.
I spent 5 years with the company.
That's a measure of what a decent human being you are.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
But it is. I mean, but I don't believe that MP is going to do the decent thing. And
No. And don't think, there was no violence on my behalf. It was just an outburst.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're measuring it against tall and short, long and far, whatever. It's just I understand to a degree, and maybe I'm playing devil's advocate, because I don't think everybody should come on your show, and certainly on talk, and agree with you entirely.
I hate that. No. I like these robust conversations.
It's a program, and you know what? I think you're the best in the week. You know what,
Andrew?
No, honestly, I do. And also, you said something, I think it was at the end of last year, you said about you wanted to be an agony aunt. And you know what? I really wish the producers or the directors or whoever would give you that opportunity. And I only listen to you. I don't watch you. I listen to you,
Well, I love it that you do. I'd love to be an agony aunt. I think I'd be pretty bad at it. But
you
tough love.
Be honest and direct, and I love that.
Bless your heart, Andrew. Your love. Thank you so much for your call. Right, time now to find out, I think, how you could be in a chance of winning £25,000.
It's competition time, and we're giving you a chance to win a whopping £25,000. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
25 grand. That sounds all right, doesn't it? Right, I've got loads of calls, but you're still welcome to join in. 03444 499 1000.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello. On Talk right now, it's Petrie, and I'm with you until 1 o'clock, as ever. Anna said that MP is a disgrace, not his fault. He's being paid while in jail, so that needs to change. Jail should mean an immediate by-election. I believe reform would win. None of the powers that be would push for that. I despair. And Anna, that's kind of the point that I've been making as well, that I don't think they're going to be pushing for that petition from the good people of Runcorn and Helsby. I hope I'm wrong. Wouldn't be the first time, but it is rare. I just hope I'm not wrong. I hope I am wrong this time. I hope they do the right thing as opposed to the right thing for themselves. So a very good point. Thank you. And thank you for the compliment as well. I did read that. This one from Ernie says, if I send an email to Mike Amesbury about the amount of nighttime drunken violence happening in our neighbourhood and what he's going to do about it while he's in prison as he's still getting paid, will I get a reply? I suspect you will, but it won't be the one you want. And he's burnt his bridge, says Andrew, caught in camera. He should just do the honourable thing and step down and fade away. I understand his frustration to a point, but sorry, he's not a good example, and he's been thrown under the bus to deflect attention away from Keir Starmer. Yeah, quite possibly. Kevin is in Basingstoke. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Petrie.
How are we?
I'm fine, thank you. You?
Good, yeah, very well, thank you. What do you make of this, him still getting paid? He's still 17.5 grand while he's locked up.
Well, I mean, he shouldn't be paid, should he? I mean, but MPs make laws to protect themselves. I think over the last 100 years, only 5 MPs have been expelled for being sent to prison. And I would imagine there's been hundreds or maybe thousands in 100 years that have gone to prison. So, I mean, this is nothing new. I know Jeffrey Archer went to prison. I don't know if he was a MP when he was sent. So,
there's been quite a few of them. But unless they go, unless they're there for a year plus, then they don't get recalled to Parliament. So it should be for all, particularly violent crime, right?
Well, yeah, MPs seem to get away with everything. I mean, during the COVID, there was all those dodgy PPE contracts given to family, friends and donors.
And pub landlords, yeah.
Yeah, and nothing happens. You got members of the royal family bringing in millions of pounds in suitcases, and that's okay. I mean, would you get arrested if you brought £2 million into the country in a suitcase? I think you probably would.
Quite possibly,
I mean,
yeah.
You got Nigel Farage spreading misinformation, and then people riot. People tweet about the riots, and they get sent to prison. But the man that caused the riots in the first place, nothing happens to him.
Yeah, I'm afraid we're seeing it. All too often in the rich, and we're seeing it around the world as well. They just get away. It just seems that they get away. I mean, look at Elon Musk and what he's describing, or other people are describing, as an unfortunate Roman salute, which it clearly wasn't. But somehow, because he's rich, nothing happens.
Well, no, I mean, you also got that Bannon guy.
Steve Bannon did it. I know. Did you see that? Oh my God!
Yeah, I did see it, actually. Yeah, I mean, they're doing Nazi salutes. You got Elon Musk going to see the AfD in Germany.
Yeah. He wants now. He's trying to depose Keir Starmer. And look, you might hate Keir Starmer, but he's our Keir Starmer, right? Keep your nib out, Musk.
Well, yeah, I mean, they said that we haven't got freedom of speech in this country.
Absolute BS.
And then he goes and meets a fascist party that would take all our rights away from us.
Thank you. Exactly. And look what's happening in America at the moment. Look what's happening in America at the moment, where they're actively trying to, ban everything.
Yeah, I mean, I know the richest man in the world's taking away the money from the poorest people in the world.
It is always been the case, hasn't it, Kevin, that us lot, the proletariat, the worker bees and all that kind of thing, we get stuffed over by the rich all the time, and it's going to get worse, especially as these far right parties rise.
Elon Musk. I mean, that's why people in America, workers, haven't got any rights, because the unions are discouraged and demonised in America. And that's why they're trying. That's what the Tories want to do over here. They don't like unions. They don't like people coming together because they have strength in numbers.
Yeah, and that's the truth. There's more of us than there are of them, and that's what we always must remember: is that we have more power. I mean, the Americans. I'm so proud of the American people. You know, they're refusing to go. I think the 28th is a day of no shopping, right? They're not going to certain stores, they're not doing things, they're not, Coca-Cola's value has dropped. You know, all of these people, I won't buy American now. I'm checking everything to see if it's an American product, and if I can, even if I can't find a non-American version of it, I won't buy it. You know, I've been through my hair stuff, my toothpaste, all of those things. If they're American, they're gone. And I think we have to remember that we have that strength, we have that power. And look, with this MP, what the people of Runcorn and Helsby should do is complain about him and get him gone.
Yeah, but
people
then
power.
It would have to be MPs that do it, and will they do it? I mean, I don't think so. They crash the economy, they walk away, and they have got gold-plated pensions.
I know.
Their pensions are like 90 grand a year.
Look at Birmingham Council, right? They crashed that. It's fundamentally bankrupt, although they're not legally allowed to go bankrupt, owing £1 billion. And they've just given themselves a pay rise for mishandling. And who pays that?
Well, the thing is...
local taxpayers pay that in their council tax.
The thing is, with councils, over the last 14 years, councils have seen their budgets from the government cut by 60%. So, you know, councils are, you know, they don't want to put people's council tax up. But if they're not being supported by the government...
They are wasting a lot, though. And to your point, they waste money, they spaff it, and then they don't pay it back. We do. It's like Thames Water, right? They borrowed money to give it to their shareholders, which should be a criminal offence. It should be against the law to do that, to borrow money to give it to shareholders. They didn't pay into the infrastructure. They're now being told to pay into the infrastructure, and the largest water company in this country now is putting its bills up by a massive amount to pay for what needs to be done, whereas they didn't pay. So it's us pays again.
Well, yeah, that's what happens when things are privatised. It doesn't work for the consumer. It works for the shareholders.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are reaping the profit.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing is about when I keep hearing, oh, you know, we need all these public services are wasting money. When they say they're wasting money, what they really want to do is just cut funding to that public service. Like the NHS wastes money, but what that really means is we want to cut NHS budget. It's not about wasting money. They just want to cut everything. But it sounds better if they just say they're cutting waste.
Well, it's like Musk saying he's going to save $2 trillion. He's downvalued that to $1 trillion. Now that's been downvalued again. And all these contracts that he's saying that he's cancelled, and he's adding up the cost of the contract. Most of them, 98% of those contracts, some money's already been spent. And to pay out the contract is the full contract price. So he's saved nothing.
Well, the thing is, what they want to do, they want to cut all these things that I think are the richest country in the world should be doing.
Yeah.
But they want to cut all these things so they can give tax breaks to the rich.
Yeah. Anybody over 400,000 a year will get a tax break, and anybody under that will be paying more tax.
Yeah, because I mean, Trump has said if any foreign company invests over £1 billion in America, they don't have to abide by laws that protect the environment, that protect the workers, air quality, water quality, all that sort of thing. That goes by the by. You just invest £1 billion in America, and you can do what you like.
Like the Wild West.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. It's always us lot that pay for the rich to continue being rich. Unfair. Kevin, thank you. We'll take a quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you for the next 10 minutes. And we're talking about Mike Amesbury, who's been jailed for 10 weeks. He won't serve all 10, obviously, in this country. But he's been suspended from Labour, suspended from the party, but he's still in the House of Commons, right, because he was elected by his constituents. So it's only his constituents at this point that can force him to resign. And to do that, they have to sign to say a sort of petition to say 1 in 10 of them has to say, yeah, it's time for him to go, right? And then he has to resign, and then they can have a by-election. But if that petition doesn't happen, or 1 in 10 people don't sign it, he can just languish there as an independent, even though you probably voted him in not for the man that he is, but for the party he serves. That's another thing that annoys me, is how are they able to go on as independent? You didn't vote for an independent, right? You voted for somebody in a party because you want that party to represent what you want. And you want him to be inside that party, the party that is in power, in order to get your constituency concerns listened to and perhaps things to change for you. I mean, what's he going to be able to do as an independent? Genuinely. I'm asking for a friend. I don't understand. And why you'd want to keep him. And would you have voted for him had he been representing an independent party or just independent? I don't know whether you would have done. I don't think you would have done. So it's frustrating. And it's frustrating as well that he's getting paid. Angie has said, if you or I, Petrie, had unknowingly had a non-crime hate incident, and police don't have to tell us, which is really scary, isn't it? Then we could potentially miss out on future jobs that required a DBS check. It's so infuriating. This thug gets to keep his salary whilst in jail, twiddling his thumbs. And that is where we are. It's not fair. It's not right, because none of us would be continuously paid whilst we were serving prison sentences. Or at least I don't think we would. I don't know anybody who would, apart from MPs, which seems to be a bit wrong. Tony is in Lancashire. Good morning, Tony.
Morning, Petrie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad myself.
Good.
Yeah, just listening here. Yeah, good good conversation what you've been having tonight. And yeah, I agree what Georgina said earlier on. Exactly what she was saying. I think he should go same to Keir Starmer as well for lying to us, lying in House of Parliament, and he's supposed to be solicitor or something. He's lying to him bloody self. I don't get it. Anyway, but the other matter is, anyway, about these bloody blooming MPs, shall I say. You go on about that, he could appeal it.
Yeah, he can only appeal the sentence. He can't appeal the conviction because there's video and he pled guilty. So I don't know why he's appealing it.
Even so he goes and tries to appeal, who's going to end up paying for the court costs anyway? It'll be us again, I bet, won't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Pathetic.
Yeah.
It's absolutely scandalous, it is.
And the fact that he's still getting paid, I don't know anybody else who still gets paid while they're in prison, do you?
No, it's a joke, it is. It should get a bit bloody longer, about bloody 3 months or something, longer than that maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and Tony, another Tony has contacted me from Liverpool. He says, you can't claim your pension if you're a pensioner whilst in prison. It should be the same for the MP and his salary.
And everyone, yeah. Shouldn't matter who you are in that day. Yeah, it's bloody scandalous.
Yeah, because you can't claim, if you're on benefits and you end up going to prison, you don't still get your benefits while you're in prison.
You've got to tell them.
Yeah.
You've got to tell them, and if you don't tell them, the longer you leave it, you'll get that on your back as well. Don't forget.
Yeah. Well, I just think MPs just seem to be, as ever, different to us.
Yeah. Do you know, I was thinking as well, if you ask me, it should go to all MPs, right, what I'm about to say. I think they should stop paying them as much as what they're getting, cut the wages, make them stop so they're not getting blooming expenses, and rest of the stuff, like you 2 Kia, never free sunglasses, free bloody pants. Oh, cracking, what else have they not told
Well,
us?
yeah, I mean, that's the thing as well. I mean, Tony, that it's not just his salary he's going to be getting. His grace and favour house, or not grace and favour because he's not important enough, but his, if he's got a house in London or a flat in London that he uses for when he's in London working as a constituency MP, that will be being paid for. His rent will be being paid by us. The heating bills will be being paid by us. The council tax will be being paid by us. His salary will be being paid by us. He'll still get his pension being paid for by us, all the while that he's in jail. I mean, what's he lost, right? Where's the lesson in that? I mean, if I was jailed for thumping someone, and I have been tempted, and I still got everything in my life paid for, I'd be thinking, well, that's all right. I mean, do you see what I mean? It doesn't seem to be right that this happens because nobody else gets it. And if you bring your company into disrepute, you get fired. It's as simple as that, and you don't get all the benefits. Thank you, Tony. Great to talk to you. Quinn is in Neath. Hello, Quinn. Where's Neath?
It's in Wales.
Oh, Wales. I love a Welsh accent. So, Quinn, Borodar, tell me, what do you think about this guy still getting everything paid for?
Well, what I reckon is should give him basically take his money off him and basically have him to live what we are already earning ourselves. That'd be one thing.
Yeah.
Put him on community service, like say give him 200 hours, something like that, like everybody else would probably do, and basically, well, take all his all the rest of the stuff that he likes to benefit from.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're not supposed to, you can't have one rule for one and then another rule for another. You can't.
Well, it seems to be ridiculous, doesn't it? But more and more we are seeing this the MP class, that they are separate from us. They are different to us.